Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this podcast. I am super excited to be sharing with you a series of episodes where I answer questions that I received from my Instagram community. So a few weeks ago, I did the whole sticker thingamajig, and I told people, I was like, hey, I'm going to go on the podcast. I'm going to create some solo episodes of just me answering your questions as best as I can. And specifically, I was soliciting questions about learning astrology, and I got so many juicy questions. At first, I thought it was going to be this casual thing, but no. So much flowed out of me, and I just kept, going and going. And I think if I were to compile all of these questions, they would be like 3 or 4 hours long, maybe a little bit more. So first of all, thank you for everyone who submitted the question, because I really love answering questions about learning astrology. If you love me answering questions about astrology, I would love to know, because maybe I'll do more of these episodes. It was just so fun to create. Just a reminder before we get into it that my course with Britton LaRue, Astrology as Praxis, will be starting on September 10th, 2022, and registration will be on August 26th to 28th. I'm super excited to not only be teaching astrology, but also to explore various pathways that you can use to integrate astrology, individually as well as in a community. Using astrology, yes, to help you understand yourself, right? That is definitely the point of this class. But also to expand your idea of who you are as a cosmic being and your role, your participation, your agency within this larger cosmic body. It's really a robust container, a beautiful, sturdy curriculum where we really actively invite in all of our faculties, right? Our mental, intellectual faculties, our emotional, spiritual, somatic faculties, to participate in learning and ultimately unlearning astrology and creating the astrology that we need and want in this moment. Check out our course page if this resonates. All of that will be in the show notes below. Okay, so back to the questions. Because they were all so rich, I really didn't want to fit this into 1 or 2 episodes, because I think that might be a little overwhelming given how the episodes have so many different topics. And so I'm trying a new format here where I'm going to break it up into many different smaller pieces. So you're going to see episode 26 to 31 being these Q&A episodes. Episode 26 is where I cover a couple questions. One of them is really about what to say or how to deal with naysayers of astrology. And then the other one was really about how do we reconcile being a unique individual, right, with unique birth charts, as well as being, categorizable using the language of astrology. And so to me, these 2 questions are a little bit more philosophical, and they really speak to like this duality of like the inner skeptic and the outer skeptic. So I grouped them together, and then episode 27 is my personal recommendations on learning astrology. So if you are interested in doing that and you think you will benefit from, a list of resources and me kind of reviewing those resources, listen to episode 27. Episode 28 is pretty technical. It's where I talk about houses, aspects, and stellium. I find that these 3 subjects are really the subjects that are for like advanced beginner astrology students are very much like alive, because we don't tend to talk about houses or aspects in like memes, so people don't really know about it that much. So if you feel ready to go into like the nitty-gritty of astrology, go to episode 28 for houses, aspects, stellium. And then episode 29 is where I talk a little bit about my current approach to interpreting natal chart, as well as where I stray from tradition. So this is an interesting episode. I think this one may be the more controversial one, if that's what you're into. Episode 30 is like my astrology ritual and practices, as well as a major life transit, which in this case, Pluto transiting through my very packed fifth house. So episode 29 and 30 are both a bit more on the personal side. Like they're really kind of my take on things. So if that's what you're interested in, or if you're interested in hearing my life story and my journey with Pluto, then definitely listen to episode 30. But both of them are pretty personal. And then episode 31 are really the miscellaneous questions that I couldn't really find a place for in the other episodes. They're really about Lionsgate and then housing contract and Chiron in Cancer. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy these episodes. Please also know that if you're listening to an episode where there are numerous questions, you can always skip ahead using the timestamps below in the show notes, right? So yeah, that hopefully will come in very handy, and you will find that very useful. If you are like, oh, I'm not really interested in this question, just jump ahead. And then finally, all of the intros are going to be the same for episodes 26 to 31. So you can, if this is your first time listening to the intro, well, you got to the end of it. And if this is your second episode that you're exploring, then totally just skip to the questions, right? Don't feel like you need to listen to the intro again. And you can use the timestamps for that. Okay, cool. That's me being my Virgo rising self, letting you know about all of the little details. And I think that's it. So enjoy this episode. Actually, more like this series of episodes that are super juicy, super exciting, pretty nerdy, and I will see you on the other side. So this question is from Rita. I want to know the deal with the Lionsgate portal. Is that astrology? LOL. Well, Rita, this is not my area of expertise, and the Lionsgate portal isn't really something that I've encountered in my astro studies. But recently, and regrettably, this episode is going to be released after the Lionsgate portal has passed. So I don't know if this is something that still interests you, but I received an email from one of my friends, Amanda Yates Garcia. And Amanda's email, I thought, was really beautiful, really beautifully explained the Lionsgate portal. And also, there is an incredible ritual there, which is very much Lionsgate inspired. But I feel like you'll still see or experience magic even if you do it out of time, right? Out of the Lionsgate portal, especially if you do it with heart and with intention. So I'm going to link that email in the show notes below so that you all can access it, and yeah, feel free to support Amanda's work, or to sign up for her newsletter if that resonates with you. There's another question within your question that I thought is really fascinating, which is this question around what's astrology and what's not astrology. And I'm not going to go super in depth with my answer, but my view is that it's important to keep an open mind. So even if I think something is not astrology, which in this case is not really my perspective, meaning I don't really think that Lionsgate is not astrology. But even if I don't think it is astrology, what difference does it make? You know? If someone infuses a particular time portal with magic, with sincerity, and it's personally meaningful to them, then I would say, why not? You know? We definitely need more people who can live with intention, who can listen to resonance. And besides that, everything is an invention, you know? The 7 days a week division, that's an invention. The 5-day work week, that's an invention that we are currently questioning a lot. The dollar peg, that is an invention. The government, that's an invention, although nobody wants to hear that. So if it makes your life and if it makes your existence more beautiful, more enchanting, more inspired, then my question is, why not? You know? And who am I to rob someone of that joy? So I hope that helps, and I hope you check out the email that I'm going to be linking in the show notes below from Amanda Yates Garcia. This next question is from Nikki. How do I know when it's a good time for me to sign a contract for housing? Well, this is a fabulous question, and to me, part of my integrity as an astrologer is to admit when a question is outside of the range of my expertise. Personally, I won't really use astrology for this kind of question. I would really use my own intuition to feel into when something feels good or not. And in fact, my own preference is to use as little tool as possible so I can really hear the call from deep within me, right? Because when I do that, at least from my experience, I have either gotten really amazing results, or even when I crash and burn, I can very clearly see what lesson I needed to learn from that experience of crashing and burning. That being said, I know a lot of astrologers that would and could answer these types of questions responsibly. Those tend to be astrologers who are much more interested in very technical aspects of astrology, and they have more skills, more interest, more experience with these techniques than I do. And over time, because of their interest, their skills, their experience, they can really answer this question super well. So yeah, I want to be very clear that this question can definitely be answered astrologically. My recommendation for you, Nikki, or anyone else curious about this kind of question would be for you to really find an astrologer who is highly skilled, highly experienced to work with questions like these. Now, I know that astrologers who specialize in questions like these, they may charge a whole lot more than regular kind of natal chart astrologers because their skills have taken them a long time to refine. Someone I know with good technical skills and whose perspective I've really enjoyed is Drew Levanti. I've actually never worked personally with Drew. I've never even met Drew in person, but from everything that I've consumed about from their content, I've really enjoyed their approach and their perspective and how they approach this kind of question, right? So I definitely welcome you to check out Drew's work. And personally, I will tell you what I will do if you come to me with this kind of question. What I would do is I would guide you to talk about your concerns, your fears, and your intuition, right? Essentially, what we would be doing in the session is to use astrology and to use astrological language to help you identify what is in the way of you making an empowered decision, regardless of astrology, to sign a contract for housing, right? Is it that you've maybe had bad experiences in the past? If so, let's talk about that so you can find some release from the mental grip of these unpleasant experiences. If you have an intuitive nudge, right, about when may be really good for you to sign this contract, but you don't trust that, we can talk about that. And I will probably also be seeking guidance from what I consider, at least in my toolkit, to be wiser sources, right? Like maybe we will connect to the Akashic field, or maybe we'll connect with the tarot and, or see if there are any kind of energetic practices that we can implement to get you to feel good about your decisions and when you want to make them. We can also talk about your chart and talk about how you can feel more confident in decision makings in general, right? To me, for example, I know I talk about this maybe a lot, but the rising sign is such an important piece of the puzzle. So studying your rising sign and playing around with kind of embodying your chart ruler can really help you become more confident about decision making because you know what works and what doesn't work for you. I tend to think that there's just no easy pill that can magically make life's concerns disappear, right? Especially things that are so concrete and so kind of like Saturnian as signing contracts, right? Or like finding housing. All of that is really nerve-wracking. And all of that is really scary. And I don't think that astrology is the only contributing factor, right? I truly believe that it's not just about when you make the decision or what decision you make, but it's also the energy with which you make decisions, right? And the process you have allowed yourself to have, permission yourself to investigate before you make this decision, because that can play a huge role in how the decision ended up being for you. So to me, the inner work is equally important as the outer work. And so usually what I do is I help people with the inner stuff, and then, I will refer them to people who can really help them with electional astrology or with horary, right? Which is another branch of astrology that is more predictive, that can really, really help you, that can really assist with this kind of very real, very, like concrete questions. The final thing I will say is that to be really discerning with the kind of astrologer or practitioner you hire to help you with this kind of decision. Now, what that means, I cannot tell you, because you will have to feel into it yourself. But I think that, good astrologers, right? A good astrologer, electional or horary, will really take the time, will really take the pain to, maybe pain is not the right word. They will invest a lot of care into truly understanding your question and understanding you as a human before answering your question, right? And so to me, this kind of goes back to some of my points in my answers in the other questions about space holding skills. I think having some sort of space holding skills, right, and really making a person feel heard and understood when asking these kinds of questions is really important. Even if the astrologer's primary role, right, and primary expertise is the technical aspect. So yeah, I hope that answer is helpful. And thank you for asking that question. So this question is from Abby. What does it mean for someone to have Chiron at 0 degrees in Cancer? Well, my first question, if I have the ability to talk to you face to face, would be, which house is Chiron in? Because that's a really important piece of information in terms of actually delineating, right? But the reason why I didn't ask Abby this question is because I feel like maybe answering this more generally is actually more useful to a wider net of people who are listening to this podcast right now. So I actually have Chiron in 0 degrees of Cancer in the 11th house. And also in the 11th house, if you use the whole sign system, is Jupiter for me. I'm going to answer this question archetypally because I don't have your chart, or I don't have the chart of whoever you're asking about, Abby. If Chiron is the archetype of the wounded healer, the greatest healer in the land as well as the greatest teacher, who cannot find the cure to their own problems and physical ailments, then I kind of think of Chiron as where we have a problem that really bugs us and that we may never solve or come to peace with. Because maybe the whole point of having this specific problem is that we become more compassionate, we become a more wise and caring guide for others who are moving through the same experience. It's the kind of healing or wisdom that hurts a little bit, that costs us something, right? Rather than wisdom that we just naturally have without effort. I think of maybe Jupiter as, often where we are blessed with something in this life, or where we have a lot of ease, and maybe where Venus is as well, barring other mitigating factors, right? But Cancer is really that space where if we allow ourselves to go there, even though it really hurts, it can be true medicine and a true gift for other people. In the sign of Cancer, I would then relate that to the themes around nurture, around motherhood, around care, right? So Chiron in Cancer may really indicate a sense of being abandoned by forces where you consciously or unconsciously seek unconditional love, unconditional care, be that your actual mother, your motherland, your mother tongue, or the people from whom you came from, right? Forces that you wish would mother you, which can lead you into this journey of learning how to mother yourself through your own pain. And often when you have found enough fluency in this area, you'll find that the best way to use this is to work with finding people, places, situations where you can then give care to, right? Or where you can teach others how to care for themselves and or others. But this area of life may never feel totally neutral to you. Like somewhere deep down, you may still be feeling the pinch of healing others or learning to heal others from a place of knowing how hard it is to have been hurt in that space, right? And that may be your own wounds, and that may never truly heal in this lifetime. So for example, if you have Chiron in Cancer, let's say in the 5th house of creativity, right, of unique self-expression, of expressing yourself, of romance, you may find yourself to be an excellent, let's say, voice teacher, who, to use a very specific example, right, who maybe hurt your vocal cord in your early days of performing because you never really found a teacher who could care for you and the way that your physical voice needed to be cared for. And then now, fast forward, decades later, maybe you've become, a teacher who's deeply respected, who has a really thriving studio of students who totally love you and whom you can help heal through a robust method of using the voice in a healthy way that you found it, but maybe you yourself never quite restored your own voice to its former glory, right? And maybe it still hurts for you to see people singing really well, including your students, because you yourself are not 100% there with your own voice. And then you also mentioned 0 degrees. So all of that was to talk about Chiron in Cancer archetype, right? And maybe you can, look up the definition or the significations of the house, and then you can kind of create your own idea if you have Chiron in Cancer. And then Abby also mentioned the 0 degrees, right? I'm not a degree astrologer. So actually there's a whole realm of study, right, which tends to be really magical, really mystical, called degree astrology, that I would encourage you to check out. Check out the Sabian symbols or the Chandra symbols. I will put all of that in the show notes, so don't worry if you don't catch this the first time. In fact, let me share the 0-degree Cancer descriptions for you, right? Lowers an old flag and raises a new one. Whereas the Chandra symbol by John Sandbach, and this description is by a person named Elias Lonsdale. I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. A potter at work. So that's a symbol. A potter at work. And then the description is carving out a sacred place for what you most care about to flourish. Giving your all to a task or project, a way of life or shared stream. Social-culturally gifted. Selecting out what you feel pulled to cultivate and foster, and eliminating all other factors. You feel nurturing, sustaining, giving, but unwilling and unable to recognize and come to terms with shadows and difficulties. So intent upon creating a perfect world or vessel that you miss whatever you do not want to see. And this is a precarious edge to walk. So I hope that helps on some level, or at least opens something up for you to further explore. And yeah, I'd be curious to hear how that landed for you. All right, I hope that you found this episode to be interesting, thought-provoking, helpful to you. As a reminder, there are a bunch of other Q&A episodes around this episode, really from episode 26 to 31. So if you want to hear me talk more about different questions that people submitted, feel free to really find the topic that's interesting to you. And if you're resonating with this episode, definitely check out Astrology as Praxis. It's going to be a year-long journey of learning astrology, integrating astrology, understanding both yourself and the world around you using astrology as a framework for, really practicing what it means to be human. Britton and I would love to see you in the container if you resonate with our voices. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, rate, review this podcast, and if you're on Apple, I would love to receive your review. Something new that I am currently creating is some content that I will share with you as a gift if you write some reviews. So if you do write reviews, please take a screenshot before you submit it and then send it to me on healingthespiritpodcast@gmail.com. And then I will get back to you when the bonuses are ready. Just want to say that this is a practice that I find inspiring from one of my teachers, Sabrina Monarch. So I'm like, I want to do the same too. And it will be a totally different content, obviously. But just naming Sabrina as my inspiration for reciprocity. Until next time, I hope you take good care of yourself. And I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for listening.